All right, gang, we are back. These are my thoughts on The Boys. I remember I was supposed to actually do this with Stranger Things as well, but I never did it. So I said, fuck it. Instead of me waiting till during the week where I know I'm not going to do this, let me just do this now. I just finished the finale, bro. And these are my immediate thoughts. As I was watching the episode, I just made some notes. So a lot of people were saying that the ending sucked. Yeah, there are a few things that I would change. First one, Ryan. Ryan was a wasted character. This whole thing of Kimiko getting Soldier Boy's power was fucking trash. It should have been Ryan that got that power. Because that would have made way more sense. Soldier Boy is his grandfather. That could have been like a secret power that Ryan didn't know he had, and it came out at a critical moment, and he hits Homelander with it. That would have been way better. And even if you wanted to give Kimiko this power, bro, the way they did it was just fucking stupid. Oh yeah, they exposed Soldier Boy to radiation, and he randomly got this power. Like when your body, say you put, how radiation fucking works, bro. If you put two people in a radiation chamber and radiate them, yeah, they get cooked, but like how that shit like alters DNA and stuff, it's like a random mutation. You wouldn't just get the exact same thing across two different people, especially even if you want to take into the account that like Kimiko is a woman and Soldier Boy was a man. And then Soldier Boy was injected with compound V1, which is completely different to the modern day shit that they use to create soups, right? So the fact that it reacted in the exact same way, and she just happened to get like this exact same power as Soldier Boy is fucking retarded, bro. Because by that logic, they could have gotten any soup that has some sort of regenerative abilities, and they technically could have gotten Soldier Boy's power. By that logic. That was trash. It should have been Ryan. This was season 5, throughout season 4, as Ryan started to play more of a pivotal role and they were kind of toying with his character and he was torn between Butcher and Homelander, I was like, okay, I can see what they're doing here, right? Ryan should have been... And that's what I was going to say. Throughout that series, I was saying, bro, Ryan is the wild card in this war with the boys in Homelander. Ryan, whoever Ryan decides to side with, it's who's going to win. What happened this season? Ryan got beat the fuck up by Homelander and then jumped him in the final episode. Waste of a character. Ryan should have been the one with Soldier Boy's power. Way more impactful. Ryan rising up against his father. They could have done way more with that character arc. They could have had him, at those internment camps at the start of the season, being evil, and then, certain shit happens, and then you see him kind of like struggling with what his mother would have wanted, and Butcher's influence on him as well. Because I think Butcher was in those internment camps as well. Like, they could have done way more with that. And then as Ryan goes through a character arc, and he comes out the other end like, bro, like Homelander's full of shit. Fuck this. And he turns on him at like a pivotal moment. And it would have been way more impactful. Like the son rising up against his father. And I think Ryan could have been an interesting dynamic, like how they have Homelander and Soldier Boy through the season. I am very glad that they brought Soldier Boy back. He's probably my favorite character, bro. So I'm very glad that they brought Soldier Boy back. I think putting Ryan, and instead of it just being Homelander and Soldier Boy, it now becomes a triangle between the three of them. Father, grandfather, and grandson, or son, being Ryan. That would have been way better, bro. And I think even seeing how Homelander's trying to almost corrupt Ryan, Soldier Boy could have had some sort of influence. Whether it's even, like, it would have added an even better dynamic where Soldier Boy's like this old school, hardened man who says, bro, Homelander, you are a fucking pussy. So you got Homelander, who's like this modern day evil. You got Soldier Boy, who's like the old Gramps, who's just tough as fuck. Like, no, this is pussy, this is whack, toxic masculinity, all that shit. And then you got Butcher, who's like the modern day, like he's fucked as well. But like that would have been way better, bro. You have these three people influencing Ryan, and whoever he decides to go with is who wins the war. That's how I would have done it, and him getting Soldier Boy's power. Why did Kimiko get it? Why did the way that she got that power? Fucking trash. That was the first big point. Second point, Homelander shouldn't have died. When they dropped the trailer for this season, in the comments, one of the top comments was somebody saying, I think it would be way more fitting, and I hope Homelander doesn't die, because it would be way more fitting for him to just lose his powers and have to live his life as a regular human. Because that's the whole point of his character, and his whole thing is being the superhuman. Him dying, like, it's like the saying, you know, there are way worse ways to hurt somebody than by physically, like, harming them. You know, if you got a man, if you steal someone's bitch, you smash his wife, I don't know, you kill someone's kids. Like, there are a lot of ways to hurt somebody worse than just, like, beating them up. Same thing with Homelander. There are way worse things that could have happened to him than just dying. Again, it might have been a bit of a cop-out, but Butcher could have had this kind of arc as well, where instead of just blindly stabbing Homelander through the head, he gets, he decides to, like, no, like, this is your punishment, bro. You got bitched on live TV. You said you would suck my dick and eat shit live on TV. That was actually pretty funny. And I think that is within Homelander's character, because that's all he has is these powers. He loses it, he would revert to just being a bitch, bro. So, in saying that though, that does probably, like, I'm sure there'll be some sort of plot element. Oh, like you could inject him with Compound V again, and he'd get his powers back. But even then, you could, like, the story writers could just say, oh, you know, because he lost his powers, like, even it changes your DNA and Compound V. Like, I don't know, they could have just made up some bullshit, like how they made Kimiko just get Soldier Boy's power. Like, we just making shit up. So I thought, like, him dying is still okay, but I think it would have been better and more fitting and more of a punishment if he was forced to live with no powers. I think that would have been more fitting. Frenchie dying was stupid. First off, why did he lock himself in that radiation chamber? I thought he did it to try to lure Homelander in there so he could try to cook him and try killing him himself. But then he does it, Homelander escapes, and then Frenchie's not even, like, sitting in that radiation chamber being cooked. He's somehow been stabbed. It's like some little cut. So usually in this show, when someone dies, they get devastatingly gory as fuck, ripped in half, or their head fucking explodes, bro. Some shit like that. We didn't even see what happened to Frenchie. I thought they were doing a rug pull. I'm like, bro, he's not dead. He has some cut. Yes, he's bleeding like fuck all over the floor, but it's like some cut on his abdomen. And then he actually dies. I'm like, bro, they're rug pulling us. He's not going to be dead. Or he's going to pop. We're going to think he's dead and then he pops out at a random moment. No, bro, he actually died. That shit was trash. And I feel like the only reason they did that was so that when Kimiko gets the power of Soldier Boy, oh, he like how his like ghost appears in front of him. It's like, Mon Cure, you always had the power. Like, I think it was just like some bullshit, like, cash out they tried to do for emotional impact. I'm gonna lie, I was pretty sad when he died. But I'm like, bro, this dude's not dead. And then the next episode, I'm like, what the fuck? Also, another wasted opportunity. I'd never make note of this, but I just thought of it. When Homelander injects himself with a Compound V, or like the original V1, and he's in that field and he starts lasering the sky like he's Devil Jin in this bitch. He was like, run, and then the episode ends. I thought the next episode was gonna immediately pick up from that moment. But it doesn't. It just cuts to, like, I don't know, days later, and everyone's just doing random shit. Missed opportunity. I wanted to see Homelander spaz out, and then maybe They have a fight with him where Homelander's just, holy fuck, this cunt's immortal now. Like he got a power boost on top of this shit, and they barely escape with their lives. Maybe like if Frenchie was gonna die, that like in that moment would have made more sense, bro. And then it's like, fuck, bro, this cunt's unhinged. And it would have just raised the stakes. And oh my god, like we need to kill him. It should have. It would have made killing Homelander a better outcome. Because with how they did it, it's like, oh yeah, like he's gone off the deep end, but they could have done more. They could have done more with that. Next point. Butcher had a point. How he was going to unleash the virus on the Supes at the very end. He had a point where he said to Huey, he's like, bro, we need to get these Supes the fuck out of here. You know that another Homelander is going to rise up. He actually had a point, bro. And I said, I think they're leaving certain plot points unanswered or certain plot threads loose so they can then create a spin-off series and shit like that. Tying into that as well goes back to Ryan being a wasted character. I think Ryan should have been the one to rise up against Homelander, and then he sort of becomes the next Homelander, but what Homelander should have been. Like he should have been like a good Homelander, and then he's leading the way. And then you could do like a spin-off series where, you know, there were the people that really believed in Homelander, and you know how they were trying to like not hypnotize, but you know, pretty much brainwash society into accepting him as their god. They could have had a spin-off series where, yeah, like they were trying to brainwash regular society. What's to say other Supes didn't think that way as well? I think they should have had like, you know, a spin-off series where there's a group of Supes that really believed in Homelander and what he thought was right. And now it's like this uprising of all these other Homelanders, maybe not as powerful as him. And like Ryan has to deal with that. That could have been a good idea for another spin-off series, bro. It's also unanswered if Ryan even still has his powers. Because you know when Soldier Boy does that attack, it's this big fucking beam. And so Butcher and Ryan were both holding him in place to get hit by the beam. Butcher then gets killed by Huey with a gun. So I'm assuming that Butcher lost his powers in that blast as well. Because if you shot Butcher before that he got hit with that blast, he wouldn't have died from that. He would have just eaten the bullet. All Supes are bulletproof. So the fact that he died from a bullet, I'm assuming he lost his powers. I'm assuming that Ryan also lost his powers, which is whack. But they didn't actually specifically answer that. You never see Ryan flying or anything like that, but there's no real situation where he needs to after that. Yeah, that was my last point. Did Ryan lose his powers? So those were my immediate thoughts after watching this. Like Ryan was a wasted character, bro. That's probably the biggest like L that they took, bro. Trash. So much potential, bro. Also, Soldier Boy is still alive. Remember that Homelander choked him out and put him back into that cryogenic thing, like in his tower? Soldier Boy's still alive. And Soldier Boy is immortal. Although now you have Kimiko with Soldier Boy's power, she could hit him with that ability and take away his power, make him mortal, and you could kill him. The virus as well. I'm glad that they touched on that though, because I was thinking, I'm like, bro, that virus is still in play. What happened with that? So I suppose that's a good thing. What else, bro? Sage becoming a dumbass. I think that was weird how they kind of tested that on Sage. I think Sage wanted to be freed of her intelligence, but she never really, that was never really emphasized during the series, that she was kind of being tortured by having this superhuman brain. Pause. I need some of that right now. Yeah, some superhuman brain would go crazy in this bitch. But they kind of did that, and then she's like a dumbass again, and yeah. It did kind of go off the deep end. I see people saying like, oh, it just becomes jokes about dicks and all that shit. Yeah, there were moments like that. And then there was that moment where Annie and I think it might have been Butcher or someone were up. No, that wasn't Annie. It might have been Huey or someone. They were up in the vents, bro. And there's that cat girl and that dude, and they start sniffing each other's asses. And they're like, oh, you had Taco Bell. It was like, what? That was like very uncomfortable to watch. But then at the same time, I said in my immediate reaction, I'm like, bro, there are people in real life who, if they had these powers, they would be doing that. Freak the fuck out, absolute sexual pests, bro. So I think there is like a level of kind of authenticity to it as well. But yeah, The Boys still a good series, bro. Definitely recommend. I really think, especially, you know, like I'm thinking of like my dad watched this show. He would love this shit. Like an older audience, like kind of elderly, bro. Just because it's so out the gate, like they'd be like, what the fuck is this? I guarantee they never would have seen a show like this before. Whereas you get, you know, us, like anyone who's like a modern day, like internet user, you probably see out the gate shit all the time. And all it is, all The Boys is, it's just, you know, a Marvel movie comes out. Oh, what about, you know, when Captain America was defrosted and he comes into modern society, he'd actually be saying, bro, why are all these black people walking around on the street? Because like racism was a thing when he went into the cryo chamber. All The Boys is it takes all those series and just actually does them in the show. Or how I know there was a dude who like shrinks himself down and doesn't he go into a dude's dick or like up a dude's ass and expands and kills somebody? That was like a fan theory from Thanos and like Marvel Avengers and shit. So, and I think the director said, yeah, we saw those theories and we just did it in our show. So all it is it's like a realistic kind of take on it. It's like, bro, if you had this ability, you could just do this. Like, it's kind of a take on that, but I don't know. There were a few, definitely a lot of things that I would have changed. The main one being Ryan, bro. That's fucking whack. They could for sure give Ryan his own spin-off series. I know Soldier Boy's getting one. I think that's good. He's my favorite character. So they could even do one where he gets woken back up in modern day. Like there's still a lot of loose ends and shit. And I think they did it on purpose to set up the sequel series. But yeah, that's about it. Those are my immediate thoughts. It's nearly 20 minutes. So fuck it. That's all. The Boys, still very good show. Still recommended. But, and the ending, it wasn't the worst ending, but yeah, it could have been better. But that's just like a common thread with shows in general, bro. They cannot have good endings these days. But whatever. Goodbye.